And this is something that I think we need to really come to grips with in the state of Texas. You know, when we talk about the anti-family law industry, the family destruction industry, they are destroying the lives, not just of families, but of our veterans. And it is so hypocritical every single time that we say that we love our veterans, and then here you are, a perfect example of a veteran with 26 years of honorable service, when you've actually even cared for for Dan Crenshaw. You've done many things. You've cared for children. You still work in neonatal, and you're 100% disabled, and yet this is the way you get treated in our courts here in Rockwall, Texas. And if you aren't upset about this, you should be. I'm sorry, I get upset about this. I burn about this stuff.
In 2013, during the trial, Judge Rakow looked at me and says, I cannot legally hold you accountable for serving our country, but yet I can still take into consider the time you've spent away from your children.
I can punish you with that.
I can punish you with that.
The time that you took away your children, the time you took away from your children to serve our country.
Right.
To serve our country.
During one of the
to give him the freedom
hearings,
to be able to make that.
During one of our recent hearings, Judge Rakow was heard yelling so loud we could hear him in the courtroom, in chambers, which he takes everything to chambers now, since
right.
Jeff Morgan and other people have been there to court watch for me. He said, fine. He says, if each parent wants to pay $30,000, fine. Great. More retail for the business.
More retail for the business.
Yes,
Judge
they
David
were
Rakow.
having a big laugh. We could overhear them in chambers.
Another hearing with Detective present there, Nagy. He says, I don't care who your client complains to. She's never going to get 50-50.
I don't care who your client complains to. She is never going to get 50-50. This is Judge David Rakow, who says this against Olga Ventura, a 26-year-old honorably discharged veteran nurse, neonatal nurse, everything else. This is evil.
And when COVID first came out, I know people can believe in it, not believe in it. Whatever it was, I got sick. I'm on oxygen. You can see my machine.
Right.
It was before vaccines were out, so it wasn't like I had a choice to accept it or deny it. It just happened.
Right.
I almost didn't make it, and Ashmore said that the amicus, Margaret Spain, said that with my disabilities, she didn't know if I could parent my child. That goes against ADA.
Isn't that amazing? Here we have an amicus attorney as well, picking sides. The whole thing was a predetermined outcome. It's as if these people were kidnapping your kids.
Yeah.
They told me I'm labeled combative and hysterical. 10 years. Which parent who wants to be involved in their children's life wouldn't be?
Right. Right. Can you tell us a little bit about Ashmore, because you had an attorney from there, and
so I had an attorney with Bailey and Gallion. His name was Brad Johnson. He left the firm and came to Ashmore, and Bailey and Gallion modified for 50-50. They did a good job. I didn't hire them on again because Brad Johnson knew most of the case. He knew most of that modification in those years of case. And there was a high turnover at Bailey and Gallion. So I opted to follow him to Ashmore. He is a retired Navy Chief Corpsman who took on the case at Ashmore and then withdrew. And I was given Casey Ashmore, who's a veteran, who also is very tight-knit in these circles with Pamela Miley, in the GOP and the Republicans here, and also with the VFW.
Yeah.
He's a veteran himself, and he has yelled and berated me, insulted me.
And we do have some of this on audio that maybe we should play just to show the abuse that Casey Ashmore committed against you.
So he took me for 20 grand and never filed habeas or anything based on merit. He never argued for merit. And you've been there.
I've been there to watch.
I've
actually been in the office with you too, as you know.
Yes.
And in other consultations that you were in, I was able to sit in.
And then
Probably never let me do it again, but
he told
Yes,
he
yeah,
told
yeah.
me
Because
because
was very
my
uncomfortable
ex had
because of-
hired a hired gun, a therapist by the name of Jenny Ganon. You know, for my daughter, who he said she was suicidal, and tried to pin that on me. And then Casey told me never, you know, don't talk to her. Legal advice, you know, don't. She's a hired gun, and so I didn't. Jenny Ganon withdrew and said that she does not take conflict cases anymore after speaking to a lawyer. After, you know, your video when we covered her. And to this point, my daughter, where is that care? I'm advocating for her because if she was that suicidal, why isn't she in a psychiatric institution? Where's her medical care? What happened to all that counseling that he was taking them to while we were going to, you know, hearings and, you know, so that he can have that upper hand? Well, now that he has these temporary orders that he knows aren't moving anywhere, where are my kids? Where's
There's
the
no care for
love
them.
or the care for their counseling now?
It just seemed like every time there was an order,
Modification.
modification, yes, all of a sudden the kids are they're sick or they're, you know, need to have mental help, and he would take them to a therapist, that type of thing. You know, just a classic case of utilizing and abusing the system to sit there to get what he wants in
It's
court.
obvious with
Yes,
10
yes.
reports of CPS and all ruled out that there's
Corruption,
manipulation going on.
manipulation, corruption.
So, and I will say this regarding David Rakow. Yours is not the first case that I sat in his court to observe. And there was another case that also was corrupt, in my opinion. Now, I didn't follow it as closely, and the person had to fly from Florida to Texas to sit in front of the judge. There were a couple of times, I believe once or twice, that the judge was sick. And because of that, when this guy from Florida came back in, the opposing attorney argued, well, Judge, you had to settle this within this time period, and that time period has now expired. And the judge, David Rakow, said, well, there's nothing I can do. It was his fault.
Yeah.
And you know, I
excuses for we don't act surprised.
right.
You know,
Right.
It's just, you know, every day.
Yeah.
You know, seem like an everyday occurrence.